Dawn breaks over Port Hercules. The Mediterranean Sea glows a deep, undisturbed sapphire. A $50 million superyacht rocks gently against the private pier. You will find absolutely no trash scattered along Avenue Princess Grace, nor will you hear a single police siren wailing. It is a state of absolute engineered tranquility. But step behind this velvet rope. The pristine facade immediately shatters. 38,000 residents are tightly packed into a territory noticeably smaller than New York's Central Park. 1 out of every 3 people walking these streets is a verified millionaire. The city wakes up in a highly organized, ruthless frenzy. This is not the organic evolution of a historic European settlement. It is the most heavily guarded corporate country club on earth. Every single square inch is meticulously optimized for offshore capital. The whole enclave is legally disguised as an independent sovereign nation. It operates with the cold precision of a massive financial corporation. Shall we uncover the brutal machine operating silently behind the magic? Wealth feels eternal here. It isn't. Rewind to 1856. The House of Grimaldi stood on the absolute edge of total humiliating bankruptcy. 2 major agricultural towns, Menton and Roquebrune, declared independence. They took 80% of the principality's physical land. They took the citrus groves, they took the olive trees. The traditional economy vanished overnight. Monaco was left with absolutely nothing, a barren, isolated rock jutting into the Mediterranean Sea. No military power, no natural resources, empty coffers. The ruling family faced a genuine existential threat. Powerful European neighbors waited patiently to carve up the remains. The sovereign state was practically dead. Extinction felt inevitable. Prince Charles III needed a miracle. He needed hard cash. Desperation forces radical moves. In 1863, he authorized the creation of the Casino de Monte Carlo. This sprawling building was not designed for elegant entertainment. It was a brutal fiscal lifeline, a desperate attempt to extract foreign wealth from passing ships. He brought in Francois Blanc, a notorious, highly successful casino operator known as the Magician of Homburg. Blanc understood human greed perfectly. He built a palace of chance on a desolate, windy plateau, a plateau once used exclusively to grow lemons and herd goats. Crystal chandeliers replaced citrus trees, velvet gambling tables replaced dirt. The financial trap was set. The gamble worked. It worked beyond anyone's wildest calculations. A newly laid railway line connected Paris directly to this seaside roulette wheel. The European elite flooded south, Russian aristocrats escaping the cold, British industrialists flush with new factory wealth, French nobility seeking thrills. They arrived in droves. They brought heavy leather trunks filled with gold francs. They lost absolute fortunes on the green bays. Money poured into the state treasury at a terrifying speed. The staggering deficit vanished completely. The barren rock transformed into a gold mine. By 1869, the casino generated so much excess revenue that Prince Charles III made a shocking royal decree. He abolished personal income tax entirely for his subjects, a single move that permanently altered global finance. That specific decision triggered a century-long gold rush. The tax-free status became the ultimate magnet for global wealth. The casino funded paved roads, it funded the opulent opera house, it funded the expanding police force. The entire infrastructure of this modern utopia was paid for directly by the gambling losses of foreign aristocrats. The Grimaldi family essentially turned a bankrupt farming village into Europe's most exclusive offshore bank, a brilliant, wildly aggressive business maneuver, a masterclass in state survival. They sold the thrill of extreme risk to save their own bloodline from being erased from the map. But survival requires strict rules. The casino saved the nation, but gambling destroyed families. The royal family knew exactly the kind of financial poison they were selling. They needed that poison to stay strictly outside the local bloodstream. A strict law was passed immediately. It stands aggressively enforced to this very day. Native Monegasques are legally forbidden from gambling. Passports and identity cards are checked rigidly at the grand entrance. A citizen cannot place a single chip on a roulette table. They cannot play a hand of blackjack inside the Casino de Monte Carlo. The principality thrives exclusively by draining the wallets of billionaires visiting from abroad. Yet, it ruthlessly shields its own citizens from the exact temptation that keeps the country alive. The ultimate gritty irony of extreme wealth. A sovereign nation usually requires massive physical foundations, vast agricultural plains, deep, sprawling water reservoirs, a standing military with fighter jets and heavy artillery, power grids stretching across hundreds of miles of rough terrain. Monaco possesses absolutely none of these. Look at the geopolitical map, just 2.02 square kilometers of dense, vertically stacked concrete. Exactly 5.5 kilometers of land borders, shared entirely with the French Republic. It is physically impossible to sustain 38,000 permanent residents, plus millions of tourists, on this microscopic physical footprint. The state survives through a radically different method: absolute unapologetic outsourcing. It delegates its very existence to its massive neighbors. It is a nation built on a foundation of external dependence. Consider the concept of national defense. A true country must protect its own borders, but Monaco has no regular army, no naval fleet patrolling the Mediterranean coast, no air force guarding the skies. There's only a small ceremonial guard performing duties at the prince's palace. The real protection comes from a deeply entrenched legal document: the Franco-Monegasque Treaty of 1918, signed in Paris strictly after the First World War. This specific treaty legally binds France to defend the Principality's independence and sovereignty. French military might serves as the invisible, heavily armed shield over these luxury yachts. Monaco faces the unpredictable sea securely, not because of its own warships or coastal artillery, because a nuclear-armed European power guarantees its continued survival. Now look deep underground. The micro-focus reveals the fragile truth of daily survival. Clean, icy water flows endlessly into $50 million penthouses and five-star hotel suites. The population consumes over 5 million cubic meters of fresh water annually. Yet, Monaco has no major rivers crossing its land, no giant natural lakes. Almost every single drop of drinking water is physically piped across the border. It travels down from the Vesubie Canal and the Roya River, located entirely in neighboring French territory. Electricity follows the exact same vulnerable path. The Principality demands roughly 400,000 megawatt-hours of electricity every single year to keep the luxury running. It produces virtually zero domestic power. Massive high-voltage cables cross the French border, feeding the brilliant neon lights of the Casino de Monte Carlo. A severed cable in a quiet French mountain town would instantly plunge the world's richest zip code into total darkness. The financial ecosystem operates on a similar, highly engineered illusion. Wealth flows steadily in euros. Shoppers buy limited edition diamond watches in euros. Diners pay for exclusive Michelin-starred meals in euros. Yet Monaco is strictly not a member state of the European Union. It holds no voting seat in the European Parliament. Instead, the government signed the monetary agreement of 2001 with the European Council. This strategic signature allowed the microstate to legally mint its own euro coins. It secured the immense financial stability of the vast eurozone. But it completely avoided the heavy legislative and bureaucratic burdens carried by true member states like Germany or Italy. This is a geopolitical masterpiece of efficiency. The comparative reality is stark and unforgiving. Traditional nations spend hundreds of billions of dollars maintaining active military bases, sprawling water treatment plants, and aging national power grids. Monaco simply outsources all the heavy, dirty, and expensive machinery of nationhood. It acts significantly less like an independent, self-sustaining state and much more like a high-end luxury resort. A beautiful walled garden permanently plugged into the municipal grid of France. The sovereignty is essentially a highly profitable legal arrangement. It imports basic human necessities from the outside world. It exports extreme exclusivity back out. They permanently removed the immense crushing cost of national survival. They kept the absolute total profit of sovereign independence. Walk down the pristine marble sidewalks of the Place du Casino. Not a single piece of chewing gum on the ground. No spray-painted graffiti on the ancient walls. No aggressive panhandlers approaching slow-moving luxury cars. Visitors often mistake this flawless environment for natural civic pride. It is not. This immaculate surface is a strict mathematical certainty. It is enforced by a terrifyingly efficient, totally invisible net. The police presence here is staggering. The government employs exactly 515 highly trained police officers for a population of just 38,000. That equals one heavily armed officer for roughly every 73 residents. It stands as the highest police-to-population ratio on the entire planet. To put that in perspective, New York City employs one officer for every 230 people. This microstate triples that density. Look closely at the ornate cast iron street lamps. Inspect the dark corners of the public elevators connecting the La Condamine harbor to the upper cliffs. Glance at the perfectly trimmed palm trees lining the Lavoto Beach walkway. You are being watched always. Over 1,000 high-definition CCTV cameras monitor every single inch of this 2 square kilometer territory. The visual density is deeply claustrophobic. They operate 24 hours a day. They are not simply recording passive video. They are tied directly to advanced facial recognition software. They track walking speeds. They log the exact license plate of every single Aston Martin crossing the Avenue Hector Auto. Nothing goes unnoticed. A shadow moving incorrectly near a parked yacht at 3 a.m. triggers an immediate digital alert. The physical reaction speed defies normal urban logistics. Drop a cigarette butt onto the pavement outside the famous Hotel de Paris. Leave a designer shopping bag unattended on a wooden park bench. The central command room, buried safely deep beneath the city streets, flags the anomaly instantly. A uniformed officer will physically tap your shoulder in exactly 3 minutes, attempt a serious crime, and the entire nation instantly transforms into a concrete fortress. A jewelry heist triggers an automated nationwide lockdown. Authorities can completely seal the 5.5-kilometer French border, lock down the underground train station, and ground all flights at the Fontvieille heliport in under 5 minutes. The maritime police immediately block the harbor exits. All escape routes vanish into thin air. Nobody gets in, nobody gets out. The entire country shuts down exactly like a titanium bank vault. The courts here do not prioritize lengthy, complex rehabilitation. Under Article 22 of the Constitution, the state acts purely as a ruthless human filter. The singular goal is absolute unbroken public order. Zero tolerance is not a political campaign slogan. It is a daily physical reality enforced 365 days a year. Start a drunken altercation outside a luxury nightclub in the Lavoto district. The night does not end in a holding cell awaiting a long public trial. It ends in immediate silent expulsion. The police possess the extraordinary legal authority to escort troublemakers directly to the French border at Menton. Immediate banishment in the dead of the night. Your presence is simply erased from the territory, your name added to an extensive permanent ban list. The ultra-wealthy individuals walking these streets demand absolute safety for their families. They wear million-dollar Patek Philippe watches in broad daylight. They leave the keys inside unlocked Ferraris. They pay a massive financial premium for this unbroken peace of mind. But this perfect safety requires a silent, heavy sacrifice. The total death of personal anonymity. You cannot disappear here. You cannot blend casually into a busy crowd. Every single footstep is actively recorded. Every face is permanently logged into a sovereign digital archive. Tourists marvel at the gentle, safe silence of the midnight streets around Casino Square. They sleep soundly. They rarely realize they are walking deeply inside the most heavily monitored, flawlessly gilded cage ever constructed by human hands. Extreme luxury demands extreme, unblinking control. Walk through the center of Monte Carlo. You expect high-end boutiques and luxury hotels. You find them, but look closer at the brass plaques next to the heavy glass doors. Notice the discreet security cameras. Observe the tinted windows on the ground floors. You are not walking through a normal commercial district. You are navigating a physical manifestation of offshore wealth. In the famous Carré d'Or district, the urban layout feels deeply abnormal. Private wealth management firms severely outnumber simple grocery stores. Financial institutions are far more common than local bakeries. Over 100 distinct banks and portfolio management companies operate here, all contained within a remarkably tight 15-minute walking radius. It is a stunning concentration of financial power packed into an incredibly small footprint. This density is not an accident of city planning. The architecture exists specifically to service invisible numbers. Billions of euros flow quietly into these concrete vaults every single day. The money arrives digitally from London, Dubai, and Hong Kong. It seeks absolute shelter. Institutions like Barclays Wealth, Julius Baer, and UBS maintain massive, heavily guarded offices right on the Avenue de la Costa. They do not offer standard checking accounts. They do not process simple mortgage applications for first-time buyers. They manage complex trust funds. They oversee multi-generational asset portfolios. They execute highly confidential offshore transactions for the global elite. The entire city block operates as a highly specialized financial sanctuary. The legal environment here acts as a powerful magnet. Strict banking secrecy laws define the principality for decades. While international pressure recently forced some transparency, the core appeal remains totally intact. Monaco completely eliminates taxes on capital gains. It levies absolutely zero wealth tax on its residents. It charges no property tax whatsoever on real estate holdings. This specific legal cocktail transforms the physical city real estate development, ruthlessly prioritizes financial security over civic life. Prime street-level locations are not leased to community centers or public libraries. They are occupied by high-tech server farms. They hold thousands of reinforced safe deposit boxes. The physical geography of the La Condamine district is literally shaped by the unseen continuous flow of international capital. This creates a deeply bizarre living environment. The city caters exclusively to the preservation of wealth, not the daily convenience of life. You can easily transfer 10 million euros to a shell company in the Cayman Islands before lunch. You might struggle to find a basic hardware store to buy a simple hammer. The ecosystem serves the portfolio first, the resident second. Even the physical security of the banks reflects this extreme priority. Vaults are built deep into the solid limestone bedrock. Private security patrols the entrances of institutions like CFM Indosuez Wealth Management around the clock. The streets are perfectly clean, heavily armed, and incredibly quiet. The wealth is physically hidden, but its massive, undeniable gravity controls every single aspect of the city's design. Midnight strikes over the Larvoto coastline. The Mediterranean wind hits the glass facades of the most expensive residential towers on Earth. Look directly up at the Tour Odeon, a soaring double skyscraper cutting into the night sky. You expect a glowing hive of billionaire activity. You expect lavish parties, clinking glasses, and brightly illuminated balconies overlooking the sea. Instead, you see something deeply unnerving: absolute pitch-black silence. Floor after floor of completely unlit windows. A standard 3-bedroom apartment in this specific building easily commands 15 million euros. The multi-story penthouses shatter the $50 million mark. Yet nobody turns on the lights, nobody cooks dinner in the imported marble kitchens, nobody sleeps in the silk-sheeted master suites. White dust covers drape over untouched Fendi couches. The expensive champagne sits warm in unplugged refrigerators. This darkness hides a massive financial reality. These sprawling spaces are not traditional homes, they are heavily fortified tax compliance tools. The explanation lies in a highly specific piece of international law: the 183-day residency rule. To legally claim Monaco as your primary domicile, you must physically exist inside its 2.02 square kilometers for exactly 6 months and 1 day of the calendar year. Fulfill this exact strict quota, and a financial miracle occurs. Your personal income tax rate drops to absolute zero, no hidden fees, no state deductions. A hedge fund manager earning $100 million annually keeps every single cent. They legally avoid the brutal 45% top income tax rate in the United Kingdom. They escape the heavy capital gains levies of the French Republic. The luxury apartment simply acts as a physical receipt. It is a concrete safe deposit box holding a priceless residency card. The government does not take this lightly. They rigorously verify your physical presence. The Sûreté Publique, the national police force, actively monitors utility usage. They check your daily water consumption. They demand absolute proof of local electricity bills from SMEG, the national power provider. If your $50 million penthouse uses zero electricity during the entire month of November, the authorities ask hard questions. You cannot easily fake the residency. You must physically serve your time within the borders. For many active, restless billionaires, the required 183 days feel like an opulent prison sentence. They sit on their balconies, counting the days down on their Audemars Piguet watches, waiting for legal liberation. The exact second that legal requirement is met, the mass exodus begins. The owners of these dark windows live everywhere and nowhere. They treat the principality like a highly exclusive mandatory transit lounge. Once they hit day 184, the private jets immediately spool up at the nearby Nice-Côte d'Azur airport. The residents scatter rapidly across the globe to conduct actual business. They spend April finalizing corporate mergers in London. They fly down to Dubai for lucrative November board meetings. They ring in the new year inside glass penthouses in New York. They dock their super yachts for the entire summer in Saint-Tropez. They attend exclusive autumn art auctions in Geneva. The Monaco address remains locked. The biometric security alarms stay armed. The hired cleaning staff waters the orchids once a week and then quietly leaves. Walk through the silent streets of the Fontvieille district in mid-February. The contrast is jarring. The high-end restaurants have dozens of empty tables at 8 p.m. The luxury grocery stores occasionally throw away unsold exotic fresh produce. The heavily guarded underground parking garages are packed with silent cold Ferraris and McLarens hooked up to battery maintainers. It creates a stunning urban contradiction. You are standing inside the most densely populated millionaire city on the entire planet, a place with virtually zero available land, where desperate engineers literally build new foundations into the sea. Yet, it suffers from extreme, undeniable neighborhood emptiness. The immense wealth is legally registered here, but the human beings are constantly absent. It is a bustling, ruthless economy built almost entirely on empty rooms, a silent city of ghosts with absolutely flawless credit scores. A sovereign nation bounded by solid rock and deep water, exactly 2.02 square kilometers of sovereign territory. The geographical limit seems absolute when millionaire density hits the ultimate physical wall. A crisis erupts. There is simply no more land left to buy. No empty lots in the La Condamine district. No abandoned hillsides remaining in Fontvieille. The borders cannot push north. The French Republic firmly controls the surrounding mountains of Bézolale. Capital must look south. It must look directly into the deep, violent saltwater of the Mediterranean Sea. Traditional cities stop building when they hit the ocean shoreline. Extreme wealth refuses to accept basic geographical limits. It buys the ocean instead. Enter the Mediterranean development, a staggering $2.4 billion engineering crusade. The objective is completely unnatural, pushing the sea backward to manufacture 6 brand new hectares of physical earth. Bouygues Construction, a massive French industrial firm, leads this offshore assault. They do not casually dump dirt into the water. The Mediterranean drops to depths of 27 meters right off the immediate coast. The underwater pressure is immense. The winter maritime storms are notoriously vicious. Defeating the ocean requires unprecedented industrial violence. Giant dredging ships vacuum the seabed. Massive underwater saws slice away the uneven natural limestone bedrock. The logistics of land creation defy belief. 18 hollow concrete caissons form the new artificial coastline. Each individual caisson weighs exactly 10,000 tons. They tower 26 meters high. They are manufactured miles away in the industrial port of Marseille, towed slowly across the open sea, sunk precisely into position to create a massive underwater fortress wall. Then comes the raw fill. Over 600,000 tons of imported Sicilian sand poured directly into the hollow void behind the concrete. Millions of gallons of saltwater furiously pumped out. Solid ground forged from absolute nothingness. A newly birthed peninsula extending outward from the historic Anse du Portier. This violent terraforming comes wrapped tightly in a heavily marketed green promise. Environmental engineers carefully uproot and relocate ancient Posidonia oceanica seagrass meadows to the nearby Larvotto Reserve. They lower artificial 3D printed concrete reefs for local marine life to inhabit, an incredibly expensive, highly publicized eco-friendly narrative. Yet, the core reality remains profoundly capitalist. The entire environmental rescue operation serves one singular purpose. It justifies the creation of extreme luxury real estate. Nature is temporarily preserved only to be permanently paved over with ultra-prime residential development. The ocean floor traded for private swimming pools. The newly pumped sand has barely settled. The deep foundations are still curing. yet the real estate is already entirely claimed. Elite buyers acquire imaginary airspace above an active maritime construction site. The pricing completely shatters global records. Apartments inside the exclusive Lorenzo building, designed by famed architect Renzo Piano, demand an astonishing $100,000 per square meter. A single waterfront villa on this artificial shore easily commands $300 million. There is no historical precedent for this specific valuation. Buyers are purchasing the most expensive dirt in human history. Dirt that was entirely underwater just 5 short years ago. This is the ultimate spatial paradox. A territory so wealthy it physically outgrows the Earth. When the billionaires run out of space, they do not pack up their super yachts and relocate to Geneva or London. They simply hire fleets of industrial ships to build a brand new district. They weld steel, pour concrete, and force the Mediterranean Sea into permanent retreat. Monaco expands its sovereign borders without firing a single military bullet. It conquers new territory strictly through the brute force of a limitless bank account. The raw power of nature fully subdued by the artificial power of global capital. The surface of Monaco is an immaculate stage. Perfect gardens, silent streets, spotless sun-drenched coastal roads. This perfection requires an immense amount of ugly, noisy, heavy industrial labor. But you never see a garbage truck blocking traffic outside the Hotel de Paris. You never hear the screeching metal of a freight train near the casino. The real city, the brutal mechanical engine keeping the illusion alive, is completely buried. Because surface real estate trades at $100,000 per square meter, municipal services simply cannot afford to exist above ground. They are banished into the bedrock. A massive, interconnected subterranean labyrinth exists right beneath the luxury loafers of visiting billionaires. Consider the national train station. Gare de Monaco Monte Carlo is not a traditional glass and steel terminal open to the sky. It is a cavernous concrete bunker blasted directly into the solid rock of the Sante Devote ravine. Over 15 meters below the surface, 6 million passengers transit through this dark, subterranean hub every single year. The trucks arrive through a 3-kilometer tunnel from France and exit through another dark shaft toward Italy. It handles over 110 daily train arrivals. Yet a tourist sipping a €12 espresso at a sidewalk cafe directly above hears absolutely nothing. The immense vibration and noise of heavy rail transport are completely absorbed by millions of tons of natural limestone. This underground inversion extends to the very bottom of the social hierarchy. Waste management. An ultra-luxury city generates a staggering amount of garbage. Over 40,000 tons of municipal waste annually. It cannot pile up in back alleys. It cannot sit rotting in the Mediterranean sun. The solution lies deep beneath the Fontvieille district. The government constructed a massive underground incineration plant. It operates out of sight, burning 350 tons of raw trash every single day. The industrial exhaust is heavily scrubbed and filtered before silently venting high above the city limits. This hidden facility actually converts the burning waste into steam. That steam travels through a vast underground pipe network, providing heating and cooling to over 4,000 luxury apartments above. The ugly reality of human consumption is literally buried and transformed into invisible comfort. The logistical delivery network follows the exact same hidden path. Supplying hundreds of high-end restaurants and luxury boutiques requires a constant fleet of heavy commercial trucks. If they drove on the surface, the city would suffer permanent paralyzing gridlock. Instead, the government built the Centre de Distribution Urbaine (CDU). This is an underground multi-level logistics hub situated far from the glamorous tourist centers. Massive 18-wheelers arriving from France pull directly into this subterranean cavern. They drop off thousands of pallets of imported goods. From there, smaller, electric-powered delivery vans take over. They navigate a complex, three-dimensional maze of service tunnels. They deliver fresh truffles and designer handbags directly to the basements of hotels and shops. This is the ultimate spatial inversion. Normal cities build skyscrapers upward to house their prestigious corporations and wealthy citizens. They leave their rail yards and garbage dumps exposed on the surface outskirts. Monaco flips this logic entirely. The pristine surface is strictly reserved for pure aesthetics and elite consumption. The actual functioning mechanics of the city are driven downward into a massive inverted skyscraper of service tunnels. Elevators plunge 30 meters deep to access public parking garages. Pedestrian walkways are carved through solid rock to bypass surface traffic. It is a dual reality. A flawless, silent, sunlit paradise on top. A dark, echoing, highly industrial machine roaring 24/7 in the deep shadows below. The extreme luxury above relies entirely on the brutal, hidden efficiency below. 70-meter super yachts docked in Port Hercules. They do not scrub their own teak decks. Crystal flutes of 2008 vintage Dom Perignon. They do not pour themselves. The manicured rose bushes outside the casino gardens do not self-trim. The heavy brass doors of the Hotel de Paris do not magically swing open. Someone has to do the heavy physical lifting. Someone has to sweat. At 6 a.m., a massive human tide begins to rise. A silent daily invasion. They come driving down the winding coastal roads of Nice. They pack shoulder to shoulder on the early SNCF commuter trains departing from Menton. They cross the Italian border checkpoint from Ventimiglia. They walk down the steep concrete staircases from the bordering French town of Beausoleil. Thousands of ordinary tired people crossing an invisible geopolitical line into extreme wealth. This is the ghost army of the sovereign principality. They wear crisp white waiter aprons, heavy grease-stained mechanic coveralls, dark, perfectly pressed housekeeping uniforms. Without the physical presence, the entire luxury machine completely collapses within 24 hours. The raw numbers reveal a staggering reliance on foreign sweat. Monaco officially employs over 53,000 cross-border commuters every single working day. The entire resident population is only 38,000. The imported workforce literally outnumbers the actual people living inside the borders. They fill the blazing hot kitchens of the Hotel Hermitage. They polish the vast marble floors of the Larvoto high-rises. They hold the fragile physical infrastructure of the nation together. A massive working-class spine supporting a billionaire's playground. For 8 straight hours, they physically belong to the magic. A young barista pulls dark espresso shots for Russian oligarchs. A maid carefully folds 1,000 thread-count Egyptian cotton sheets. A diesel mechanic covered in black oil repairs the twin engines of a river yacht. They breathe the exact same salty Mediterranean air. They walk the exact same sunlit Avenue des Belugas. They are physically immersed in the absolute peak of global opulence. They serve the beluga caviar. They park the armored Rolls Royces. They know the intimate, messy human realities of the global elite. But the clock never stops ticking. The illusion has a strict, unbreakable time limit. Dusk finally falls over the Fontvieille harbor. The warm streetlights flicker on. The heavy wooden doors of the Casino de Monte Carlo swing open for the evening wails. This is the exact moment the great human migration violently reverses. The workers wipe down the mahogany bar counters one last time. They clock out, they strip off the crisp uniforms. They do not walk home to a cozy apartment. They absolutely cannot. They march back down into the cold underground bedrock. Back to the deep tunnels of the Gare de Monaco Monte Carlo. Over 110 regional TER trains operate daily to actively pull this massive labor force back out of the country. A quiet, exhausted exodus. The city violently purges its own working class right before dinner is served. The brutal barrier keeping them out is not made of barbed wire. It is made of pure, weaponized real estate pricing. A cramped 30-square-meter studio apartment in the Condamine district easily demands $10,000 in monthly rent. Purchasing that same sunless box costs well over $3 million. The purchase price strictly hovers around $100,000 per square meter. A hotel maid earning a standard European minimum wage cannot afford to rent a single square inch. Instead, they retreat to the quiet French hillsides. A short train ride away in Menton, a normal apartment drops to $1,500 a month, a completely different financial universe separated by a 10-minute rail journey. Monaco does not reject the working class, it desperately needs them to survive. It simply refuses to let them sleep there. The law does not actively ban a waiter from staying the night. The free market simply starves them out with terrifying efficiency. This creates the purest visual representation of modern financial divides. The servers and the completely served, Two totally separate human classes sharing the exact same physical space during the bright daylight hours, separated by a massive financial wall the second the sun goes down. When the billionaires finally sleep in their silent penthouses, the people who made their perfect day possible are already miles away, working in absolute paradise, exiled by sundown. Walk past the parked Bugattis in Casino Square. You see Russian mining billionaires, you see British hedge fund managers, you see German tech founders, but you rarely see the actual owners of this land. A deeply hidden micro-society exists right in the middle of this extreme wealth. The native Monegasques. Out of the 38,000 official residents living in the Principality, exactly 9,611 hold a native passport according to the latest national census. They are a tiny hyper-protected minority. A bloodline-verified caste completely shielded from the brutal free market operating right outside their front doors. The billionaires are merely highly paying guests. The natives hold the absolute trump card. Foreign capital drives the open real estate market into absolute madness. A foreign CEO easily pays $10,000 a month for a tiny studio apartment. The native Monegasque does not. The sovereign prince guarantees his people the physical right to live in their own country. The government owns massive residential blocks specifically reserved for citizens, buildings located right in the valuable La Condamine district or the Fontvieille harbor. A native family rents a spacious 3-bedroom apartment overlooking the Mediterranean Sea for roughly 800 to 1,200 euros a month. The state violently absorbs the massive financial difference. They live in the most aggressively expensive zip code on earth for the price of a modest flat in suburban Lyon. This extreme housing subsidy is an exclusive birthright. You cannot simply buy your way into this specific demographic. Citizenship is passed down exclusively through strict bloodlines. The administration des domains manages this massive portfolio of state-owned apartments. When a new residential tower is built by a private developer, the government physically seizes a mandatory percentage of the units. They remove these apartments entirely from the global billionaire market. They hand the keys directly to native families on a strict priority waitlist. A staggering 75% of all Monegasque citizens currently live in these heavily subsidized state apartments. In 2019, Prince Albert II launched a national housing plan explicitly to build even more of these dedicated units. It is a massive, impenetrable financial shield. It protects the locals from total global gentrification. The protection extends far beyond cheap rent. It dictates the entire labor market. A global corporation opens a new wealth management branch on Avenue de la Costa. They want to hire a senior accountant directly from Paris. The law forces them to stop. Under Law Number 144, native Monegasques hold absolute priority for any open job. The employer must submit the job listing to the National Employment Office first. If a native citizen possesses the basic qualifications, the company is legally obligated to hire them over the foreigner. Period. They receive strict priority for highly paid government positions. They receive priority on the lucrative gambling floors of the Société des Bains de Mer. Firing a native worker requires navigating a terrifying legal minefield. Companies face severe government scrutiny if they attempt to replace a local with a cheaper foreign commuter from Nice or Ventimiglia. Furthermore, the state provides extreme social safety nets, generous unemployment benefits, fully covered medical care at the Princess Grace Hospital. Free tuition and generous living stipends are provided for the children attending top-tier universities across Europe and North America. The government essentially acts as a hyper-wealthy, incredibly generous parent to fewer than 10,000 individuals. The foreign billionaires arriving on 100-foot super yachts are quietly taxed through massive VAT consumption and heavy corporate registration fees. That money flows directly into protecting the local bloodline. The extreme capitalist consumption directly funds the local welfare state. The ultimate irony is stunning. Wealthy foreigners view this 2-square-kilometer rock as the absolute peak of ruthless, unrestrained capitalism. A completely tax-free paradise where the free market reigns supreme. But for the people actually born there, it operates entirely differently. It is one of the most successfully executed socialist welfare states in modern human history. The state controls the housing in Fontvieille. The state heavily regulates the domestic labor market. The state redistributes foreign wealth directly to the native working class. a tiny verified elite enjoying absolute socialist protection. All of it funded entirely by the most aggressive capitalists flying in from Wall Street, London, and Dubai. A perfectly balanced, highly unequal social contract. Every May, civic life stops. The sovereign territory temporarily ceases to exist as a functional city. It becomes a heavily armed, high-speed arena. The Monaco Grand Prix does not happen inside a dedicated, distant stadium. It violently consumes the actual urban grid. The transformation begins weeks in advance. Massive flatbed trucks block the public intersections. Cranes swing heavy metal over pedestrian crosswalks. The quiet morning commute at the Sainte-Devote corner disappears completely. In its place, engineers erect towering steel grandstands right on top of the public sidewalks. The city willingly hijacks its own infrastructure. It surrenders its streets to an international racing syndicate. This is not a simple parade route. Hosting Formula One cars requires extreme, aggressive engineering. These hybrid machines generate immense, terrifying aerodynamic suction. They act like inverted airplane wings. If they drive over a standard street at full speed, the sheer force will literally rip the municipal infrastructure apart. Therefore, city workers must physically weld down over 400 heavy iron manhole covers across the territory. Every single drain grate is bolted and sealed tight. The public bus stops are completely dismantled. Workers drill thousands of holes directly into the pristine asphalt to install 33 kilometers of rigid Armco safety barriers. Massive impact-absorbing TechPro blocks are dragged in to line the luxury storefronts. The city wears heavy industrial armor. The resulting circuit is brutally narrow. It defies all modern safety logic. The drivers scream up the steep hill toward Casino Square at 270 kilometers per hour. The concrete walls sit just millimeters from their fragile carbon fiber wheels. Sparks violently shower the pristine marble sidewalks. Then the track plunges sharply downhill. It forces the cars to brake violently for the infamous Fairmont hairpin. This is the slowest, tightest corner in global motorsport. The steering wheels are physically modified just to make this single impossible turn. They accelerate back out, tearing past the luxury yachts at the swimming pool chicane. The deafening roar of turbocharged V6 engines echoes endlessly against the high-rise apartments. This extreme logistical violence serves a highly lucrative purpose. The urban grid is weaponized for global marketing. The city monetizes the sheer danger and proximity. A standard public sidewalk suddenly becomes exclusive VIP real estate. Residents immediately evacuate their own apartments to cash in on the chaos. A simple third-floor balcony overlooking the starting grid is rented out for $30,000 over the 4-day weekend. Wealthy tourists pay this massive premium just to inhale the toxic smell of burnt Pirelli rubber and unburned racing fuel. Even the most basic, uncomfortable metal grandstand seats cost a minimum of $800 per day. The city treats its own geography as a highly profitable modular stage. The extreme monetization extends directly into the water. Port Hercules undergoes a radical financial restructuring. Super yachts do not just dock. They purchase a front-row ticket to the asphalt, securing a prime mooring slip right against the harbor track wall during race week. Demands hundreds of thousands of dollars. The owners host lavish, multi-level parties while the cars scream past just 20 feet away. A billionaire drops $100 million on a private vessel and still eagerly pays another $5,000 for a single Paddock Club VIP pass to walk the pit lane. The entire ecosystem forces the global elite to pay unimaginable sums simply to stand closer to the noise and the danger. For the people actually living inside this modular stage, the reality is deeply unnerving. The event physically traps residents inside their own territory. You cannot easily cross the street to buy groceries. The pedestrian bridges are locked down by aggressive security guards. The noise pollution is absolute. It physically hits your chest. You cannot hold a normal conversation in your living room. The heavy, acrid stench of high-octane fuel violently permeates the elegant lobbies of five-star hotels. The luxury and the grit collide in a terrifying, spectacular assault on the human senses. When the checkered flag finally falls, the cleanup begins immediately. The steel barriers are unbolted. The grandstands are disassembled, the welds on the manhole covers are ground away. The pristine, quiet illusion is carefully reassembled, but the underlying truth remains fully exposed. This territory does not view its streets as permanent civic spaces for ordinary citizens, a perfect, adaptable theater built solely to extract maximum capital from a captive international audience. Watch a standard delivery route. In a normal city, trucks deliver flour, milk, and basic vegetables. Here, the baseline of human survival is warped. Supplying the 2 square kilometers of Monaco requires a staggering, highly specialized platinum supply chain. The local grocery run does not involve cardboard boxes. It involves heavily guarded shipments of Alba white truffles flown in directly from the Piedmont region of Italy. It requires refrigerated containers packed entirely with Iranian beluga caviar. These expensive goods cannot simply sit in a standard traffic jam on the A8 motorway. They require immediate, heavily prioritized extraction from the French border. The geography is completely choked. A massive limestone mountain tightly boxes in the northern edge. The deep, unpredictable sea locks down the southern border, forcing absurd quantities of extreme luxury into this tiny bottleneck requires military-level logistics. The logistics are engineered for impatience. The physical weight of this imported wealth is terrifying. A billionaire does not just fly in with a simple leather suitcase. Transporting a limited edition Bugatti Chiron from a private estate in Dubai to the Casino Square is a logistical nightmare. It cannot be driven across the continent. It moves through a dedicated, invisible network of climate-controlled armored trucks. These massive, heavily fortified vehicles navigate the tight, winding roads of the French Riviera under the cover of darkness. They pull into highly secured underground ports buried deep beneath the La Condamine district. Art faces the exact same rigorous journey. Rare Pablo Picasso canvases do not travel via standard postal couriers. They arrive escorted by armed private security firms moving silently from the vaults of Geneva directly into the ocean-facing penthouses of the Carré d'Or. Every single item entering this territory demands absolute security and flawless handling. Insurance policies for these single shipments exceed the total GDP of small island nations. Look directly up at the clear blue sky. Listen to the constant rhythmic chopping of rotor blades. The Fontville heliport operates with a terrifying endless frequency. Over 100,000 passengers transit through this tiny concrete pad every single year. A 6-minute flight from the nice Côte d'Azur airport completely bypasses the coastal traffic. But this ultimate convenience carries a brutal, undeniable cost. A twin-engine Airbus helicopter burns roughly 50 gallons of aviation fuel per hour, simply to ferry a single hedge fund manager to lunch. Immediately contrast this with the water below. Look at the Port Hercules harbor. Dozens of 70-meter super yachts sit completely stationary in the water. They are going absolutely nowhere. The heavy fuel smell lingers in the salty air. Yet, to keep the onboard cinemas cool and the swimming pools heated, a single idling super yacht effortlessly burns over 500 liters of marine diesel every single day. The physical reality of this consumption directly attacks the pristine image of the state. The sovereign principality heavily markets itself as a global champion of clean oceans. The Prince Albert II of Monaco Foundation spends millions funding vital marine conservation projects across the globe. They host high-profile gala dinners to save the coral reefs. The Oceanographic Museum stands as a proud monument to protecting fragile seas. Yet, the extreme lifestyle of its own residents operates in absolute violent contradiction to this green narrative. A wealthy resident taking private jets between London and the Mediterranean easily generates over 2 tons of CO2 per individual flight. Down in the harbor, the combined fleet of stationary mega yachts produces an estimated 10,000 metric tons of annual greenhouse emissions. They burn heavy, toxic fuel purely to power the air conditioning while the owners are not even on board. The clean, silent streets hide a massive, incredibly dirty logistical footprint. The perfection is an optical illusion. You see the flawless Alba truffle shaved over a delicate plate of handmade pasta at the Louis XV restaurant. You do not see the massive carbon trail required to put it there. You admire the silent, polished Bugatti parked under the streetlights. You ignore the heavy diesel trucks that hold it across Europe. The territory walks a deeply precarious logistical tightrope. It demands the absolute peak of human indulgence. It imports heavy, carbon-intensive luxury into a microscopic, geographically trapped location. The pristine surface relies entirely on a vast, polluting, and widely excessive supply chain operating quietly in the background. The sparkling waters of the harbor are fueled by the continuous, unapologetic burning of extreme excess. The contrast is sharp, undeniable, and deeply uncomfortable. Nothing is natural about this environment. Look directly at the pink facade of the Prince's Palace, sitting high on the fortified rock. You expect a traditional European fairy tale. You expect ceremonial monarchs waving politely from velvet balconies. You're actually looking at the highly secure headquarters of the oldest continuously operating family business on Earth. The House of Grimaldi does not rule a traditional nation. They manage a fiercely independent, highly diversified sovereign holding company. The historical timeline is absolute. Francois Grimaldi violently seized this specific coastal fortress in 1297. They held the rocky asset through centuries of brutal European warfare. In 1949, Prince Rainier III radically shifted the entire corporate strategy. He transformed a struggling, dusty post-war casino town into the ultimate global offshore tax haven. When Prince Albert II formally took over the boardroom in 2005, the mandate shifted again. He operates less like a royal patriarch. He acts entirely like a modern, ruthless chief executive officer. Royal decrees are essentially aggressive corporate board decisions. The crown is just a globally recognized brand logo protecting a massive, highly guarded national balance sheet. The core business strategy is currently undergoing a massive forced pivot. Relying purely on velvet roulette tables and secret bank accounts is total financial suicide in the 21st century. The Grimaldi board actively diversifies the sovereign portfolio. They channel billions of euros directly into green tech venture capital. They aggressively fund ocean-cleaning startups and advanced renewable energy grids. They pivot hard into sustainable luxury real estate. The $2.4 billion Meritera land reclamation project is a direct sovereign investment. It is explicitly designed to yield centuries of premium waterfront rental income. They are quietly incubating digital asset firms and blockchain architecture inside the state-funded Monaco tech startup hub. They heavily subsidize high-end medical tourism. The Princess Grace Hospital currently undergoes massive billion-euro renovations. They want to attract aging global billionaires seeking world-class, highly discreet surgical procedures. The ruling family treats the entire 2 square kilometers as a modular corporate asset. They constantly upgrade the municipal software. They relentlessly optimize the physical hardware to keep the ultra-wealthy permanently subscribed to the expensive lifestyle. But a massive existential threat circles the tight borders. The global tolerance for hidden wealth is violently collapsing. The international community actively hunts offshore money. This intense pressure hits the palace boardroom directly. In 2009, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development forced Monaco off its notorious uncooperative tax haven grey list. It required immediate, incredibly painful financial transparency. Then came the brutal implementation of the Common Reporting Standard in 2014. This specific global treaty forced Monegasque banks to automatically share private financial data with foreign tax authorities. The lucrative age of anonymous numbered briefcases died overnight. Furthermore, the global base erosion and profit-shifting framework systematically targets the exact corporate loopholes this territory historically exploited. Just recently, the Financial Action Task Force issued severe public warnings regarding local money laundering vulnerabilities. They actively threatened to place the nation back on a devastating financial grey list, a move that would instantly freeze billions in daily foreign investment. The international regulatory siege is relentless. The traditional shield of sovereign banking secrecy is thoroughly shattered by aggressive global legislation. This brutal legal reality defines the ultimate succession matrix. Prince Albert II must eventually hand the boardroom keys to his young heir. Crown Prince Jacques, the next generation, inherits a profoundly difficult corporate transition. They cannot simply sell Mediterranean sunshine and absolute financial secrecy anymore. The global tax authorities are actively watching every single wire transfer. The future CEO must sell unbreachable physical security. They must market extreme, heavily curated exclusivity. They must convince the next generation of Silicon Valley tech founders that a Monegasque residency card remains the ultimate global status symbol, even when the traditional tax advantages rapidly shrink. It is a monumental, incredibly fragile pivot. The House of Grimaldi survived violent naval sieges. They survived the bloody French Revolution. Now they face relentless armies of international forensic accountants and global regulatory compliance officers. The survival of the world's most luxurious country depends entirely on this single family's ability to rewrite their own corporate DNA. They must adapt quickly before the international market forces them into total, irreversible bankruptcy. Look closely at the global economic map. Most sovereign nations survive by exporting tangible heavy goods. Germany ships millions of high-performance automobiles from Stuttgart. Taiwan manufactures advanced silicon microchips in Hsinchu. The United States exports global pop culture from Hollywood. This specific 2-square-kilometer territory produces absolutely nothing of the sort. No massive steel factories hidden in the hills, no endless agricultural fields, no industrial tech hubs, yet it commands unparalleled global financial power. The 38,000 residents living here do not buy local products, they buy a highly engineered physical illusion. The true export is totally invisible, absolute unbreachable exclusivity. The state sells the ultimate human commodity, a physical and legal shield. A reinforced fortress wall separating extreme capital from the messy, unpredictable consequences of the actual world. Extreme wealth preservation. When you pay an astonishing $100,000 per square meter for an unbuilt apartment in the Meritera district, you are not just buying Mediterranean ocean views, you are purchasing total guaranteed immunity. Immunity from global income taxes, immunity from violent street crime, immunity from the chaotic, rapidly growing realities of the modern class divide. It is a carefully curated, heavily armed vacuum, a place where global billionaires can finally exhale, but the exact cost of this flawless perfection is terrifying. It requires total, unquestioning submission to the daily machine. The illusion only survives through ruthless, invisible control. The 1,000 high-definition CCTV cameras never blink. The facial recognition software silently logs every single footstep across the pristine marble sidewalks of Casino Square. The perfectly spotless streets you walk today are not a natural civic miracle. They are a daily, highly expensive industrial conquest. The historical fairy tale is a brilliant, highly profitable deception. The House of Grimaldi did not build a traditional European country. They constructed the most successful, heavily armed wealth management corporation on planet Earth. A multi-billion-dollar private enterprise successfully masquerading as a charming coastal principality. They eagerly sell the dream of a romantic royal paradise, but they operate with the brutal, unsentimental efficiency of a major Wall Street hedge fund. Dusk finally falls over the deep blue Mediterranean Sea. The physical separation becomes absolute. The massive regional SNCF commuter trains pull out of the Gare de Monaco Monte Carlo. They carry the exhausted ghost army of 50,000 foreign workers back to the cheaper reality of France and Italy. The national checkpoints silently harden. High up in the Tour Odeon, the $50 million penthouses sit completely dark, waiting patiently for their absent owners to fulfill their 183-day residency quota. Down in Port Hercules, the 70-meter super yachts rock gently against newly manufactured artificial concrete shores. The foreign servers are permanently gone. The wealthy served are heavily protected. The perfect, silent, gilded cage securely locks its heavy brass doors for the night. The illusion remains absolutely flawless.